Okay, I'm happy to be here. However, I've been drafted to do this project. I want you to know, but I want to do a good job at it. So hopefully I can do it.
My 8 children have contacted Peyton and said they would like to hear about their birth, the birth of each child. And so I can tell you right up front, as I've thought about that, you can always remember the details on the first child and maybe the second and possibly the third. But when you have 8 children, that kind of blends into each other a little bit. So I'm going to do the best I can, and we'll see where it goes from there.
So I thought I would start at the beginning. We were married in 1966, and by 1967, I thought, I'm ready to start a family. I would like to do this.
We were married on September 16th, 1966, and but did not have a child until August 28th, 1969. So we had a considerable amount of time in between there where we didn't have children. We actually had 2 miscarriages. I think all of you know that. And I was feeling kind of blue and thinking, gosh, what have we done wrong? Is God cursing us or something?
We were going to college, and Dennis was in the bishopric in a student ward, and everybody had babies. But he was up on the stand and I was alone in the audience, and I just thought I would like to have one, and not for that reason, but just because it was time.
But we set up some mighty powerful prayers, and all of a sudden one day Carolyn said, gee, I don't think I feel so great, and she was expecting really for the 3rd time.
So we were pretty excited when that day came. However, it had its complications. I was in my last semester to get my bachelor's degree, and we got a call from I forgot who called, but they called and offered me a job in Parowan, and said they would waive my last semester if I would go teach for a teacher who needed surgery. And so I was highly recommended by Gwen Clark. I was her favorite. So I said, okay. So I went, and instead of doing, I had done student teaching, but there was, a lot of work left to do and I don't know what it was. So anyway, they waived that for me, and I traveled to Parowan, 50 miles I think, every day, and taught a 4th, 5th class. And I started about Christmas time, maybe just after Christmas, maybe. It was a difficult class. She was a really good teacher, and they had given her all of the kids with problems, the psychological type problems, and so it was a little difficult. Then I found out I was expecting, and of course it threw me into fear because I had 2 miscarriages and I didn't really want to have another one. So I persevered as long as I could, and I went home and I would sleep for 2 hours before I could start dinner. I was exhausted, which was the way I did things with every pregnancy. The first part I was really tired, sleepy. So got to about March, and I lost my courage and thought, I just don't want to do this anymore. And so I went to Mr. Dotson and said, I'm expecting. I'd like to be released from this job. And he was so good. He was so awesome. He said that they had lost a baby when his wife was working, and he'd always wondered if they would have that baby now if she had not kept working. And so he let me off the hook. And so I went home and did my thing, made baby clothes and did whatever I wanted. Actually, I tended a friend's little baby, and he cried all the time. But anyway, when I graduated from SUSC, I was 6 months along out to here, and walked across the stage, got my diploma, and then we got in the car and moved to Beaver, Utah.
So when we were living in Beaver, Utah, when the birth actually took place, but our doctor was Dr. Rymel Williams in Cedar City. So we had to dash down to Cedar City for his birth.
We progressed through the summer. Dennis worked 2 jobs. He hauled hay all day, and then at night he'd work at the service station, and I was just home alone, being a nest builder, and it was really fun. I enjoyed it. It was a quiet time for me to get ready, and by the time August came, Dr. Williams said, go ahead and come to your next appointment, but bring your suitcase. So on the 27th of August, we headed down to Cedar with our suitcase, and he checked us into the hospital, and I was induced. The labor lasted for about 13 hours. He was born at 3 o'clock in the morning.
was born on August 28th, 1969 at 1:33 a.m. We were in the hospital there. Dr. Williams didn't live very far from the hospital. It's in the middle of the night. So he said, I'm going to go home and take a nap. And he told his nurses to give him a call when things were ready, and he'd be right there. Well, when things were ready, about 1 o'clock or so, the nurse came in and told us that things were ready and we should go down to the birthing room. So we went down to the birthing room, and Carolyn was laying there, and they had her all strapped in and all the things that you go through to have a baby. And all of a sudden, a nurse came running down the hall screaming for, I think her name was Maggie, but I might be wrong on that, but she was screaming, Maggie, 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 we need your help. We have a heart attack up here. And the hospital was dead silent. And I can't find this instrument that I need. And Maggie said, well, told her where it was. She said, I need your help. I need your help. So Maggie turned to me and said, can you handle this for a few minutes? And then she took off down the hall. Well, there we were in the birthing room. Carolyn was getting ready to have a baby, and I'm in charge. So immediately we started praying like crazy that the doctor would get there soon. Well, as it happened, Maggie wasn't gone too long. She came. She was taking care of Carolyn. And then pretty quick, the doctor showed up. And as I remember, the baby was born. Kyle was born at 1:33 a.m. on August 28th, 1969. The problem that he had when he was born, it wasn't really a problem. I guess all babies look like this. But I couldn't believe how greasy he was and how wet he was. And he was purple. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got a weird child here.
And gorgeous little baby, little round baby. He weighed 8'6", maybe 8'6", and every other baby was 8 pounds something. We had one that was 8 even, 8'2", 8, except for 3, and 2 of them were 7-pounders, and that was Shannon at 7'2" and Jacqueline at 7 even, and then Paul who tipped the scales at 10, 4 1/4. So everybody else was 8. But
everything worked out just fine, and he was born totally normal. Rymel Williams was the resident doctor, and he was kind of a braggart. He had been the spelling bee champion when he was a kid, and here he was, a 60-year-old man at the time, or thereabouts. He was still bragging about being a spelling bee champ. And prior to the birth and after the birth, he and I had some good discussions about children and family and raising children. So I would say that the birth was a little bit exciting for us, and yet it was a very normal birth.
Then I spent a couple of nights in the hospital, and everything was great. Came home, and I remember Dennis was kind of jumpy walking up the door because he had a big surprise for me, and opened the door and said, "Let me have the baby." I said, "What?" So he took the baby. He thought that if I walked in and saw a piano that I would drop him. So he had bought a piano from another seminary guy. They were moving to New Zealand and had to sell their piano. So we had that old Gil Branson player piano, and he had moved it into our living room. We bought it for $100. So we had a piano. So we got along really well with Kyle. Mother came about an hour after we got home and just said, "Give me that baby." And she just loved him. She took care of us. She came with Jeff. Jeff was 3 years old, and he played and had fun during the whole time he was there. And in fact, he fell in the ditch once, and he used to say, "I almost drowned at Beaver." Or no, he would say, "I drowned at Beaver." And so he stayed with Mother, and they took care of me. Mother would give Kyle to me, and I would feed him, and then she would take him, and I could sleep. She was a really good nurse. She loved every minute of it. So we got along capitally well. I could tell you more about Kyle, but this is the birth story, so I will move on.
Kyle turned out to be a normal baby and a great son, and August 28th, 1969 turned out to be a red letter day.